Hey there everyone, Tyler here with Volley. Today we're in our back shop and I'm going to show you how we like to reglue climbing skins using a Pomoca glue roll. There's many different ways that you can reglue your climbing skins. There's a ton of different approaches. We're going to focus on using a glue roll, and we have a nice good workspace to do this on, so we're going to be using that for this video. But we'll also show you some ways that if you don't have a good workbench, that you can still do this. So right in front of me, I have a ton of different pieces of equipment that'll help you get this job done. We won't necessarily be using all these because we have this workspace, but some of these miscellaneous extra ones might be able to help you if you're doing this at your own home. I'll just kind of run you through everything that we're using. We have this big wood panel that we like to do our reglues on. This wood panel doesn't really matter. We can get glue all over it. That's all good. This is a very messy job, so you're gonna make sure that you have a surface that you can get dirty. If you don't, you can always grab some tuning trees that we actually happen to sell here at Volley. And these are great for just tuning your skis in general. If you're waxing them at home or anything, you can just grab some tuning trees, fasten them to a table or a workbench or something, and then you're elevated. So you can go ahead and be a little bit more messy, still be conscious of what's below you, but that way you're not gonna get glue on a table that you don't want super sticky, hard to remove climbing skin glue on. There's a few things that are mission critical that you're going to need to be able to do this. That's of course your climbing skins. You're gonna need a glue roll. You're gonna need an iron, which is gonna come into play when you are re-gluing the skins. You're gonna need a heat gun because that's gonna be what allows you to scrape the glue off of your skins. Our heat gun here, we have an attachment that came with the heat gun that we secured using a hose clamp. There's a few different ways you can do that as well. You can use a heat gun with just a painter's tool and just heat and scrape at the same time. That one's really up to you. I know Coltex sells a heated scraper that you can use in conjunction with your heating gun. Handful of ways you can do it, but we just use the attachment that came with the heat gun and used a hose clamp to secure it. If you're taking the approach of using tuning trees to do this job, you're gonna be doing your whole reglue operation off of the base of an old ski. That's gonna essentially be your table. In this case, we have 178 centimeter skins, so we're gonna use a 178 centimeter hypercharger if we were gonna elevate this. In that case, no matter what, whether you're using a table or you're doing this off of a tuning tree with skis, you're gonna want some sort of like C-clamp or some clips to be able to secure the skins on either end of the table or your skis. That way that it's not moving around, because you're gonna be applying quite a bit of pressure to the skins on top of the skis when you're doing this whole job. You're also gonna want some sort of place that can get dirty to discard the glue onto, whether that be a piece of cardboard, or here we just have this metal sheet right here that we can just dump and scrape the glue onto. That will get messy. You can keep it around if you intend to keep regluing, or you can just toss it once it's done. If you also don't have tuning trees or don't have a good space to do this, you wanna keep your surface as clean as possible, you can also just throw down some newspaper underneath everything. That way that once the glue inevitably drips off and sticks down, you can just toss that newspaper afterwards. That's another little tip if you don't have an optimal workspace for this. We also recommend you wear a respirator mask for this operation. If you have N95s laying around, I'm sure it doesn't hurt. That said, those are mainly for blocking out particles, whereas a respirator mask will block out the fumes, and that's really what's gonna keep you protected from these glue fumes. And also just be conscious of the fact that we're using a heat gun. It's gonna get pretty hot, so you wanna be really careful with your hands to ensure you don't burn yourself. So now that we got the material sort of covered, we're gonna go ahead and get this workspace dialed in so we can show you how to do a reglue. We'll also show you how to set up with tuning trees as well. But nonetheless, let's get to setting up and taking that glue off those skins. All right, so getting set up with the tuning trees, we'll just show you how to do that really quick. All you gotta do is just kind of unscrew this clamp part right here and get it so it will fit onto your surface of your table. And once you have that tightened and secured, you can just go ahead and take your skis and lay them on top. That will be your surface that you're working on. For some extra precaution, throw some newspaper underneath just to make sure that nothing drips off and gets on your floor or on your table. All right, so we got the tuning trees nice and secure here. You're just gonna go ahead and take one of these skis. So now we have a nice platform to do this reglue off of. When you're getting started, you're just gonna wanna take your climbing skin that you're regluing, secure it, place it on the ski, take this clamp and then just secure it on the tail of the climbing skin and just really lock it in there. It's not gonna move around while you're doing this. Now we got this skin that's like pretty secure. You know, obviously it's not gonna be just like glued to the base of the ski, but when you're putting pressure on and moving back and forth, it's not gonna be moving around too much. It's pretty stable. From this point on, everything's gonna be the same as with the table setup. So we'll show you how to set up the table now, and then we'll get to removing the glue. So with the workbench setup, you're gonna obviously wanna clamp the climbing skin down onto your board or your bench. That way it's not gonna move laterally. We also like to have clear tape on hand because this can work in lieu of a clamp and oftentimes will work even better than a clamp. Just means you have to wrap tape around the surface that you're using. Throughout this video, you can see we've kind of gone back and forth using both just to show you that both work pretty well. So to start the reglue process, we must first remove the glue from the climbing skin. So as you can see, this one here is pretty dirty. It's not sticking as good. So we're gonna go ahead and just take the glue completely off of this one and do a full reglue. All right, so now you're gonna wanna get your heat gun warmed up. So you're gonna wanna go ahead, plug it in, turn it on. We like to set it to 650 degrees. It is running really hot, so please be conscious of where you put your hands. You don't want them close to the barrel. So now that our heat gun is warmed up and we're ready to go, you're gonna wanna go ahead and just start at the end here. We like to start at the tip, and then just slowly make your way down the climbing skin, removing this glue. You'll see it kind of build up on the end of this tool we have here. Same thing will happen if you're using a paint scraper. And once it kind of builds up enough that you don't think you can remove anymore, you can just take one of these spare pieces of metal that you have laying around, or some sort of wax scraper or anything like that, and go ahead and just wipe it off on this discarded piece of cardboard or metal that you have laying around. For our attachment, we got to use like a scraper to scrape the glue off, but if you are just using a paint tool, you can just wipe it off, dab it off on your cardboard or your scrap metal. But essentially, you're just gonna wanna do that up and down the ski until you've removed all of the glue from tip to tail. That's really all you need to do there. The glue is fully removed, and you can go ahead and move on to the next climbing skin and do the same thing while everything's nice and heated up. All right, so now that we stripped the glue from the climbing skin, you can see that we have this nice clean surface here. So we got all the glue removed completely from the skin. So now we're gonna bust out the Pomoca glue roll. We're gonna bust out the iron, and then we're also gonna need like a box cutter or a razor blade just to trim this once we get it laid out over the skin. So what we're gonna do is just get started on our peel here, attach it at the tip of the ski, and you really wanna make sure you can line it up so it's nice and straight. You don't have any overhang or anything too bad when you go to do this reglue, and then just roll it all the way down the length of the ski to the end. And then you can go ahead and just take a box cutter or a razor blade and just carefully cut the end. Then you can go ahead and do a nice pat down the whole way, kind of smooth it out. You don't want to have any bubbling. You want to make sure it's nice and pressed down to the skin. So this is probably one of the more crucial steps to this, is just making sure that it's aligned perfectly straight, or as close as you can get to that, and that you do it so that there's not really many air pockets or anything underneath. Okay, so now that we have the glue roll attached to the climbing skin, we're good to start regluing. So what we're gonna wanna do is heat up the iron, and once that's heated up completely, I'll throw the mask back on, I'll take the iron, and now what we're gonna do is kind of similar to waxing skis, honestly. With a firm but not too overpowering pressure, you're just gonna wanna move the iron up and down the length of the ski. You're not gonna wanna stay in any one spot too long. You don't wanna like overcook this. You wanna just get a nice circular motion and just move your way down the ski. When this glue sheet starts to bubble a little bit, that's okay. But that sign of a little bit of bubbling is a good sign that you need to move on and start going on to the next step. Big bubbles, that means big air pockets. You don't want that. You want the glue to completely adhere to the climbing skin. When using the iron to reglue, we like to do 2 full passes up and down the ski to ensure that the glue is really gonna stick to that climbing skin. After doing that, the glue sheet should be a little bit lighter in color than the yellow that it started out as. Not a huge difference, but that's just another way that you can tell that the glue is really bonding well and that you're probably good to go. Once that's all complete, you've essentially done your job and the glue has been attached to the climbing skin. Now what you need to do is leave the skin for at least a few hours to let the glue really bond to the climbing skin before you go ahead and remove the sheet. All right, so now that we've let the glue sheet cool, we're gonna go ahead and take this razor blade here or box cutter, just trim the excess off the sides so it's not stuck to the table when you go to do the big peel. So now that we've gone ahead and trimmed the sides to the profile of the skin, it's time to go ahead and peel off the glue sheet and check out the glue on your freshly reglued climbing skin. All right, so the last thing you're gonna wanna do once you get that sheet removed is just take your skin and stick it to itself and peel it a handful of times in different positions and spots. It's important to note that when you peel the glue sheet, you might find some patchy spots where the bubbles had formed when you were ironing on the glue. That's totally fine. What you can do is just stick the climbing skins together. When you're doing that, do that a handful of times on different parts of the climbing skin, and that will really make sure that the glue spreads around, and then those gaps will get filled. Once that's been done, store your skins glue to glue. Now you have skins with fresh glue that should stick to your skis real nice, and you are good to go. Thanks for tuning in.